Hello everyone. Today I will recap the movie Ritchie's The Covenant. The movie is based on a true story about two American soldiers who fought bravely against a group of Taliban insurgents. They not only had to protect their families, but also had to fight non-stop. While they survived this pursuit, please follow along. In 2018, in the context of the war in Afghanistan, an explosion occurred while the US military was checking passers-by at a patrol post. The explosion took the life of an interpreter. After the incident, Sergeant John Kinley, the person in charge of the team, needed to find a new interpreter to continue the mission. He was introduced to Ahmed Abdullah, an Afghan soldier who was fluent in 4 languages and had excellent mechanical repair skills. Ahmed had just lost his son to the Taliban, so he also needed a job to support his family. Soon, John's team received a new mission. This time they were going to a village to search every house, because they suspected it was a Taliban weapons cache. Before entering, Ahmed warned John that there would be nothing inside, and that he should check the intelligence. However, John did not believe the warning. When they entered, there was really nothing inside but drug addicts. Then, they received intelligence about another location. John immediately led the team there, but found only a deserted field, without even rats, let alone terrorists. It seemed that they had been fooled twice in a row. After returning to base, John informed his boss about the unreliable intelligence. However, John later received a profile of a suspect with 3 generations of terrorists. He went to Ahmed to help identify the identity, and quickly recognized a familiar face. That night, they disguised themselves and went to a market, quickly finding the person in the photo. John asked him to provide information about the terrorist activities, but the young man was very adamant, threatening to kill everyone, and asserting that they would not get any information from him. After a while of negotiating, they realized that he was in fact extorting money, and John threw him a sum. Finally, he pointed out the Taliban's hideout and their dynamite-making warehouse. The next morning, they immediately went to the land that the man had directed. However, during the trip, Ahmed felt something was wrong, so he advised John to stop and check. Ahmed warned that this could be a trap, and the enemy might be ambushing ahead. Although John did not completely believe Ahmed's hunch, he did not want to put his teammates' lives in danger, so he decided to stop the car to check. The 2 teammates decided to climb the mountain to check the situation. After looking through binoculars, they reported seeing nothing unusual. However, a drone spotted a bomb crater 8 kilometers away, which seemed to be a trap waiting for them. Ahmed then quickly caught a spy in the army. John was forced to take everyone back to discuss the plan again. The next day, the team continued their journey to the second destination, an old mine 120 kilometers away from the base, equivalent to about a 3-hour drive. When they arrived, they questioned the leader there, but he insisted that there were no explosives and no Taliban people there. However, Ahmed did not believe him and informed John. They suspected that there was something unusual about the mine. John immediately directed everyone to control all the workers, and split up to check inside. There, they discovered a bomb-making warehouse, and immediately informed John. In addition, through binoculars, John saw a few terrorists hiding inside, so he immediately called headquarters to request support more. Meanwhile, John and his team launched a surprise attack on the terrorist group, easily defeating them. He planted a bomb in the terrorist factory, but just as they were about to leave, another group of Taliban appeared and ambushed, killing a team member named Eddie on the spot. The Taliban group was as numerous as ants. They appeared on the hills and kept shooting. John's platoon immediately responded, leading to an extremely fierce firefight. However, the enemy army was too numerous, combined with the fact that they were well prepared and equipped. So even though John's team tried to fight back, they couldn't. In the end, they had no choice but to shoot back and run to the car. However, the Taliban continued to attack with bombs, causing more deaths. In the end, only 2 people, John and Ahmed, got into the car and escaped. Meanwhile, the explosives factory also exploded shortly afterwards. While fleeing, Ahmed repeatedly called the headquarters for help but could not reach them. The Taliban suffered heavy losses, became angry and lost control, and continuously chased them. Finally, one of them shot out Ahmed's tire, forcing the 2 to get out and run into the forest. The pursuers immediately appeared and split up to chase them through the forest. The Taliban commander ordered his subordinates to kill John and Ahmed. Meanwhile, reinforcements arrived, but there was no one else but the dead bodies of his comrades and terrorists. John and Ahmed kept go until they stopped to rest on a rock in the afternoon. John was in great shock at this great loss. In less than an hour, he had lost most of his close comrades, and as a commander, this was hard to accept. Ahmed understood John's feelings, but did not know how to comfort him. Very quickly, the Taliban terrorists chased them, forcing John and Ahmed to run deep into the forest. They did not dare to go out on the main road, because they knew that the terrorists were also hunting them there. While on the run, Ahmed dropped his gun while sliding down the slope. John saw this and gave Ahmed his pistol. The two saw a few Taliban soldiers below the valley and quickly shot them. However, at the same time, a large number of terrorists gathered around them. The two were very careful not to make any noise. While running away, they even captured a terrorist, deciding to deal with him immediately. But when they passed through an area, they encountered two Taliban scouting. They pointed their guns at John. However, John and Ahmed quickly shot them down before they could act. But on the contrary, this gunshot attracted the attention of other terrorists, and John and Ahmed's location was immediately revealed. Luckily, they found a cave and quickly hid inside until the Taliban left. The sky was getting dark. John and Ahmed continued their journey on foot back to the headquarters, but their food and water were running out. After wandering for a while, they discovered an abandoned house and decided to stay overnight here to regain their strength for the escape tomorrow. However, the Taliban used binoculars and located abandoned house. The next morning, when they woke up, they sensed danger approaching. As John went to check his surroundings, he was suddenly ambushed and shot in the left arm. He had to hide and try to return fire, but with one hand, he couldn't do anything effectively. One terrorist rushed in and knocked him unconscious with the butt of his gun. They started dragging him into the car. They wanted to make his life miserable from then on. As they were about to leave, Ahmed suddenly appeared as a savior, shooting down the entire group of terrorists and saving John's life. If it weren't for Ahmed, John probably wouldn't have survived. Ahmed helped John disinfect his wound, then changed into local clothes, and built a wooden cart to pull John back to the base. He went continuously day and night, finding his way and taking care of John. During the trip, Ahmed is always wary of Taliban terrorists. The main roads were occupied by terrorists, so they were forced to go through mountain trails, making things more difficult. However, those challenges did not discourage Ahmed. In the end, the two of them found a way to escape. Ahmed used the money he had to buy a used car, thought that he and John would return smoothly. However, on the way, he encountered terrorists. They asked for a ride, and Ahmed was forced to agree. Fortunately, they didn't discover John lying in the car, otherwise both of them would be in danger. Finally, Ahmed found a group of nomads and asked them for some food and painkillers for his injured friend, John. A man from the nomad group came to check on and said that they also had a grudge against the terrorists, so they enthusiastically helped Ahmed and John. They give Ahmed with some opium to relieve the pain and help him transfer John to an ox cart to continue the journey through the mountainous roads. To avoid being detected by the Taliban, Ahmed and John had to move day and night. However, John's wound showed no signs of recovery, so Ahmed had to do everything by himself. His will must be said to be extremely high. Day after day, he persistently pushed John to find his way back to base. There were times when his body was exhausted, and the pain was so great that he could not motion. He fell into despair and cried, but he quickly regained his spirit to continue the challenging journey. When he was almost exhausted, he saw a roadside stall and stopped to buy water for John. Unfortunately, the terrorists also stopped there. One of them found John lying on the cart, but Ahmed quickly shot him down. Finally, they were lucky when the reinforcements found Ahmed. They recognized Sergeant John and quickly brought both of them back. John received timely medical care, survived, and was brought back to his family in the US to recuperate. Because he was in a coma during the escape, John did not remember the details of the incident, but he knew that Ahmed was the one who saved him. One day, a friend came to visit John. At this time, John learned that, like other interpreters, the government had promised to issue immigration papers and help them leave Afghanistan when they completed their mission. However, in reality, they did nothing, and Ahmed's family was in the same situation. Currently, Ahmed's family is being hunted by terrorists. Ahmed leading John, an American, on foot for 120 kilometers through Taliban territory without being captured was a huge humiliation for them. The Taliban leader put a high price on Ahmed's life. So, Ahmed's family had to flee everywhere, living in fear every day. John was worried about the life of Ahmed, the man who had saved his life. He immediately contacted many places to ask for help for Ahmed, but got no positive results. More than a month later, John still received only vague answers from the government. When he called the army to ask them to protect Ahmed's family, they informed him that the process would take about 9 months. John was angry that Ahmed could not wait any longer. In the following days, he lived in constant anxiety and sadness for not being able to help Ahmed. He remembered how hard Ahmed had worked to save him, and felt that he should have been the one to die. Thinking of his benefactor facing danger, John could not rest easy. John's wife realized that her husband had suffered a lot and was worried. She advised John to do what he felt was right. She and the children would always wait for him to return. With the support and understanding of his family, John decided to spend all his assets to save Ahmed. Through a friend, he found a mercenary organization that could help solve this problem. First, he went to see Lieutenant Colonel Vokes to ask for help with the visa procedures for Ahmed's family. With the debt of gratitude that John saved his life in the past, Vokes could not refuse this request. John contacted a private soldier group to ask for help in rescuing Ahmed, but they were busy with another important mission. They could only tell John to go first to find Ahmed's location, then notify them. At that time, they would send a rescue team to bring both of them back. Unable to wait any longer, John agreed and set off for Afghanistan. However, if he appeared under the name of American soldiers to search Ahmed, he might be discovered by the Taliban. Therefore, John was given a new identity, so that he could secretly search for Ahmed as an ordinary citizen. Meanwhile, Ahmed was having a hard time. He and his family had to run away everywhere, but they're constantly found by terrorists, for they had placed a very high reward for his capture. Every time they were discovered, Ahmed could only fight and continue to run away. However, if keep running away like that, it's not the best policy. Without protection from the US government, they would eventually be discovered. On this side, John found Ahmed's brother Ali. Ali, understanding that John really wanted to help Ahmed, agreed to take John to Ahmed's family's hideout. They had to pass through several Taliban checkpoints to get there. At one checkpoint, they spotted John, forcing him to open fire in self-defense. However, John did not expect that. A terrorist had observed him on call to report to his superior. The terrorist then stealthily tracked John. Finally, John found Ahmed in a village. He called the Parker mercenaries to report his location, and they arranged to meet in 2 hours at a nearby dam. Parker would send a helicopter to rescue the two. When they met, John and Ahmed happily reminisced about old times. John thanked Ahmed and said he would take Ahmed and family away immediately. Everyone quickly packed up their belongings to prepare to leave. No one expected that the terrorist from earlier was outside, and had informed his leader. Immediately, he sent a large number of terrorists to attack the village. When they saw John's car leaving, they immediately chased John's car. John and Ahmed hid in the car, constantly shooting at them, causing several cars to flip over and temporarily blocking their progress. He quickly planted bombs in the trunk of the car, using it as a barrier. Then, John and Ahmed ran into the tunnel, trapping the terrorists. However, the terrorists were already lying in ambush on the other side of the bridge, and as soon as John and Ahmed showed their heads, will be shot immediately. The two men were shaking but still hit their targets. Even though they tried their best, they could not destroy them all. As long as they crossed the dam, they would reach a safe point. John and Ahmed kept shooting, but the enemy still came like ants. Finally, after a long period of shooting, their guns ran out of bullets, while the enemy continued to attack. The situation became desperate, and everyone could only wait for death. However, fortunately, a fighter plane suddenly appeared in the sky. It continuously fired at the terrorists, causing them to fall like straw. Everyone immediately continued to attack, and wiped out the terrorists until their bodies were scattered all around. A relief vehicle also quickly arrived, timely get everyone out of there. John had obtained a visa for Ahmed, and now the whole family could board the plane with John to leave this dangerous place. This was a worthy reward for Ahmed's courage and loyalty. If you find it interesting, please give me a like and a comment about your feelings about this movie. Especially, please subscribe to the channel to follow my movie recap. See you again, my dear friends.